All right, legends, we're ready to roll. That's my brother right there. We had to wear the kit because on the live session, I thought it was going to be 10C for a low. It's 2 Celsius. So our weather people are off. So we're equipped and we're rolling.
Yes.
It is cold this morning, okay? I don't care where you are. 2 Celsius is cold. Everything feels crispy. We have cold northerly flow of the wind. So it is not a warm 2 Celsius. And we have a lot of humidity. So as you can see, I'm wearing like a semi-balaclava that covers my ears and my chin and everything. I can pull it up if I need to because the top of it is open and I've got my hat because that will regulate my temperature better because it's going to warm up to 20 C. Well, let's say 18 C by the time we're done. 18 or 19 C. So it's a drastic change. So you have to dress to where you can shed. Morning. So we dress to where we can shed because if you don't, you get too hot. Then you have to stop and take things off. So I've got a full base layer. We got this jersey with the fleece lining in it, and it's nice and comfortable. The biggest thing was that we seal our hands. Look at the gloves.
Yeah, it's perfect.
We seal, so that's the key. And our shoes are covered, of course. But the area you really got to cover is your neck. That's where the cold air gets in. So we're zipped up and we got this collar. And then your face, when it's this cold, the skin on your face, the air can sting it. And that's why you see. Yeah, and then we got chapstick on our lips. Yeah, I always put that on. But yes, definitely. That's pretty lights over here.
It's those little like pieces that make the difference in your comfort.
So when you dress the part, you can handle it. So now as we ride, right now we're just a little chilled. So we know we're dressed right because you don't want to be warm the first kilometer or so. Just a little chill, but our extremities are protected. We're wearing 2 layers in the gloves, 2 layers of gloves. And that's going to keep our hands nice and warm.
On this ride, Paul and I left Northampton, went into the Woodlands. We went on Woodlands Parkway to meet Team RR. They had a different start today. After we met them over there, we went through Sterling Ridge out to Fishcreek, took Capitol Road into Honier. A lot of action there. We filmed all the way until we got to 2854 and then we stopped. Once we got into Montgomery, we left them and went into the forest. We did Taliaferro Road and decided, hey, we're close to Richards. Why don't we just go ahead and go to Richards? So we took the back way into Richards, came back to 149, and we came down on 1486. It was very windy. So we're fighting the wind, the terrain, and then the chip seal. We rode all the way back on Jackson Road into Dobbin, and then on 149 into Magnolia, past Karen there. At that point, the wind was favorable. It was coming from the southwest, so we had the wind behind us somewhat. But the entire day was just challenging. You had to work for every kilometer. We got some good clips. We hope you all will enjoy it.
We're approaching new ride start.
We're going to the Starbucks at Paramount Parkway and Woodlands Parkway. There's a guy named Paul H. in our area that got hit by a car a couple of weeks ago. He's doing better, but they're having a little ride. The guys that he leaves with, they usually leave from here.
Okay, cool.
And so Team RR decided to join them in solidarity for Paul H. Paul H's recovery. Some driver turned in front of him. There were 3 of them riding. Cut in front of him, turning left, and caused him to basically flip him over onto the windshield. So his scapula is broken and he's got some other injuries, but he's not too worse for wear. So we rode out here, and they're leaving at 8 a.m. It's 8:06. We just got there. There the guys are. But it turns out that
Morning, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
it turns out that the Team RR guys are the main participants. His own people are
Those
not here.
guys are
Only
sitting comfortably. We're supposed to leave at 8. It's 8:07. They're still sitting.
only one of their guys here. There's Paul.
Yeah, they're still sitting. That's what I was just telling the legends. I said it's 8:07. They're still sitting. I don't think they're ready to roll. They're going to be clipping in soon. But that's cool. I didn't know it was here.
Yeah, I'm not a big coffee drinker, so I'm not familiar with all the Starbucks. My wife's into that.
All right.
They have good coffee. She brought one home one time. And it's very flavorful. But their own people didn't show up. It's all our Team RR guys that are here. So you'll hear me tell Mark later.
You did, because I'm pulling up and I'm going, it's 7:29, I'm gonna make it. And I go, wait a minute.
He did say 8. He put several posts.
He said it's
Yeah, Bob said he thought it would be late because it was 7:29 and hadn't gotten out here. You can see the frost from my breath, the mist. It's cold. It is 2 Celsius. It's about 36 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that guy over there in the distance with the green shoes, that's Dan. And he's the only one that actually suited up from the group that Paul H rides with, because they got a little splinter group and they do their own rides out of here, a few miles down the road from where we are, probably about maybe 7 or 8 kilometers from where we are. But to just see such a low turnout, I told you, hear me tell Mark in a little while that, hey, this should have been your sanctioned ride. So I get my shades on, and they're gonna take a group picture so they can send it to Paul. He had to go back to the hospital because he found that his ribs were also cracked, and so little niggling issues that he was dealing with. So he couldn't be here this morning. Those of you who have seen the older video, Paul H is one of our older riders, very serious rider. So this guy volunteered to take the picture. We have some riders here that are not suited up. They're in civvies.
Did anybody choose a route?
I will. You guys have a good ride.
And this is Dan. Dan's the only one from Paul H's group that showed up. So if we hadn't shown up, it would have been a bust.
Scott, where are we going?
Yeah, talk to let's go up and
So you hear a couple of people asking where we're going, and then everybody decides, well, let's head out to Taco Corner, and then they decide they'll make their decision from there. Paul and I don't really care which route they take, because once we get out northwest, we're going further out. We end up going to Richards, Texas today, because as cold as it is now, in about 3 hours, it gets to like 18, almost 20, 18, 19 Celsius. So it warms up quickly, like, just significantly. It goes up like 30 degrees Fahrenheit in 3 hours. So we're wearing things that we can shed. The cover that I have on my head that covers my ear is a half balaclava. It's open at the top, so I've got a cap on because that regulates my heat better, and I can just pull that off when it warms up, and that's what I do. And then we got 2 layers of gloves so that we can pull them off, because if you just wear a heavy glove, then you're stuck, or you can always go bare hands once it warms up. So you have to wear things that you can take off easily, preferably while you're on the bike. So this team kit is so nice and warm. All we needed was a long sleeve thermal base layer with that, and that was it. I really like that you don't have to put on a lot of stuff with the quality garments, and you can be very comfortable, because 36 is cold. Even the dogs didn't want to come out this morning. So we're following Dan, who's the only member of the group that Paul H is riding with out of this location. And he's taking a roundabout way to get us out to Research Forest, which is the quickest way out of the Woodlands to head west. We're not really sure what the route is, as you heard everybody asking, and so the route gets made up as we get on the road. So that's what I'm telling Paul. I said, ain't nobody here from their group. And, you know, Paul is a well-known rider. He's been riding bikes for a long time. And you'll hear Mark say, I expected the peloton to be a mile long. Because apparently the area in the Woodlands, everybody is aware that he was in an incident. He was not the only one. There were 3 riders. But I think he had the most injuries. His scapula was broken. It's just the rear part of his shoulder. And then he has a hairline fracture in his wrist. So they put that in a splint. But other than that, you know, he's no worse for wear. He's a tough guy. So we came to wish him a speedy recovery. And so this ride was being held in his honor. But the only guy from his group that showed up is the guy on my left here. Dan J. We got a bunch of Dans in the group. So we're talking about the weather and how you have to be flexible.
Yeah, right there, Right turn.
Knowing that it wasn't going to go much above 20 Celsius, I just wore tights. Because I was planning on taking off the neck gaiter and the gloves. So I didn't want to have anything else I would have to take off to run out of places to store them. So I'm telling Dan, he says that he wants them to take a route. There's a little street called Players Bend that this becomes as you go across. So I tell him to ride up there and kind of lead the group because these guys may not know the route that they usually take. We're on the western side of the Woodlands right now, and we're gonna go and head north. We're all familiar with the area, but not the specific route he wanted to take. Since it's his ride, I'm telling Mark, I said it should have been his ride.
I thought there was going to be a peloton a mile long this morning.
That's what Mark said. He said he expected a lot of people to show up. So we also on Sunday sent signed cards and sent that to Paul. Mary got a card that everybody signed. So that was kind of cool. So he's at home recovering. He's fine. Just a careless driver turning left in front of them. I think the driver actually turned into him. It was in Conroe. So it wasn't one of those situations where he turns in front of you and you can stop. He turned into him and it was a surprise. So I don't know how that worked out, but he ended up just he got taken to the emergency room, and then there were a couple of other riders with him that went along just to make sure he was okay. But you know, it's good to hear that he wasn't more seriously injured. So he's one of our local legends. Paul H is in his 70s and he still puts down the hurt when he goes to the front. So we're wishing him a speedy recovery and his return to the peloton. That's why we started over there this morning. Yeah, Bob here. Bob is all covered up. Bob's not playing with the cold. As I do this narration, it is Monday morning after the Christmas weekend. This ride was Saturday, the day after Christmas, and we're like 77 degrees or something. Let me see the weather here. 73, which is like 21 Celsius today. And that's why when it gets cold, it feels very cold to us, because the weather here varies. The cold does not stay around too long. So we don't get a chance to get our blood thick enough to acclimatize to the cold. And that's all the more reason why you should dress properly, so you don't weaken your body. So I don't play with the cold. Because if I'm going to be out in there for hours, I want to be comfortable instead of miserable. So we're just taking a roundabout way through a neighborhood here. Just really quiet. I've been the opposite direction on this road. It's called Players Bend, and it will take us to Paramount Parkway, which is near Paramount Park in the Woodlands. And that will get us to Branch Crossing, which will head out to Research Forest. So we rode a few kilometers out of the way to, you know, participate in this kickoff. And it was a good thing we did, because since only one of their guys was there, it wouldn't have turned out to be a success if we hadn't joined. So that was cool.
Come back.
The speed limit on this road, I think, is like 20 or 25. Most of these roads in the Woodlands, within the subdivisions, they drop the speed limit. Like in our area, it's 20 miles per hour. Around here, it's probably 20 or 25. It's not more than that. Just to keep the traffic calm, because you got a lot of people running and riding bikes and other things. So this is Paramount Parkway.
Clear.
And in less than a kilometer, we'll get to Branch Crossing. I did not need to cover my face, but covering my ears and up to my chin kept me very comfortable. And then having what I call the 3/4 balaclava with the top open, I just put my cap over it. That kept me more comfortable than when I wear a full balaclava, because I only wear a full balaclava if it's going to be 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 7 Celsius, I think. Let's see, 3 Celsius or less for the whole ride. Oh, okay, we're further from Branch Crossing than I thought. Where we came out, we're about probably 3 or 4 kilometers from that intersection. But what I was saying was, if the temperature is not going to be 40 Fahrenheit or less for the duration of the ride, I don't wear a balaclava. I get too hot. I'm better off just wearing a hat that has ear covers or something that I can flip up later in the ride. And most of our temperatures here, they change. So if it's going to be brutally cold and I'm going to be in it, then definitely a balaclava is something I would wear, because I end up taking them off. As soon as it gets above 7C, I take off the balaclava. I just get too warm for it. So I'm wearing the kind that has an opening. It's like a sleeve that you wear, and it covers your ears around the side of your head, but the top is open. And then I put a regular cycling cap over it, and it's perfect, because I didn't need to take it off until like we hit 18 Celsius, which is like 65 Fahrenheit. And that was like 3 hours or so into the ride. So you have to dress accordingly. If the weather's going to change, you want to put things on that you can remove easily. Yeah, we're talking about a turnout, because it's just Team RR guys plus Dan. You know. So it was really good to see the solidarity from Team RR for Paul H. I hope he recovers and has no issues down the road. Because sometimes you have these kind of incidents and you don't find things till later.
Yeah, that does not bode well.
during this ride, my shifting was misbehaving. When I would shift up, it would lag, it would drag. And with my experience with bikes, when I got home, first thing I did was remove the brake hood, remove the tape. And sure enough, the cable was frayed inside the ergo power levers. They wear. It's been on this bike, the blue bike I'm riding, for about 4 years. So I've probably gotten about 20,000 kilometers out of it. You know, they vary in how long they last. And so I just replace that cable. You don't need to replace all of them at the same time because you don't use the front to rear shifting as much as the rear. So I swapped that out, but it's good to catch them early, otherwise you have problems down the road. You can get stranded if it breaks on you, and then you only got one gear. You know, so the symptoms are just constantly having to increase the tension in your cable, you know, with the barrel adjuster, or having the cable shift on you without you pushing the lever. Like you're standing up and it just shifts. That tells you something's wrong with your cable. So those are the kind of, you know, it's hard to diagnose bike issues. And it's one of those things that will vary as far as the wear. Nobody can tell you how long the cabling will last. But I replaced it and took it out on Monday today for a little casual recovery ride, and it was fine. So I always try to keep a few extra pieces of equipment in the parts bin. So you don't have to be scrambling for parts. Because most of your shifting is on the right. We do more shifting with the rear to rear than the front. So to get 4 years out of a cable on the blue bike, that's pretty good. I spread the wear because I use different frames, so that's why. You know, a lot of people may try to replace the stuff annually. I think that's a bit much. Depends on how much you're using them. You can always just inspect it if you want, but I can tell by the performance. And I usually get 2 seasons out of it easily. I'm wearing the Protein tights with pads because it's the warmest pair of tights that I have. The next favorite I have is the Castelli Sorpasso. So we may not get frigid temperatures for a long period of time, but when they come in, it feels awfully cold. And I hate feeling cold. So I dress warm. I don't play with it. So it may be cold, but I'm nice and comfortable. There are cars behind us. That's why you saw me look around. I saw him in the mirror. And then somebody said, car back. But as we get here, I think the light will change soon. And we go ahead and stay to the right because as you go across, this driver is not sure what we're doing. That's why you see him hesitating. You will see me wave the other driver over so they can go. And we just go single file here to just let them go. There's no point hogging the road. Even when I come through here solo, this is where I ride, where you see me right now. I don't like the edge over there because as I've explained in some of the other videos, those things end. That's not a bike path to the right of that white line. It's just there to prevent the road from washing away. And so they end at every intersection, the curb juts out. So I don't like to use that very much. There are sections where they're very wide. You will see that on research for it. Then fine, I'll use those. But these narrow ones, this lane is kind of wide. This is almost like an 8 or 9 foot lane. So it's wide enough. So I stay where you see Mike here. Mike S5 is where he is. That's where I ride. It's nice and clean, no surprises, because that other pavement over there, there's a lot of little things there. Most of which you can't see. And it's just better to stay on even pavement, because that pavement right in this area is a bit uneven, and you know. And you look right here, see where that curve comes out, you gotta watch for that because the lip is there. So yeah, so you're better off just using the road. So even when this road is busy, I stay where you see Mike Weingrab with the green, it looks like a pouch or something as he's carrying. That's probably part of his jacket on the right. That's where I ride. And that way the cars can go by easier. Until it's time to turn. We're going to be turning here. This is Research Forest. Usually we start from the right over there. We just go straight. That's where Crust Pizza is east. The easterly direction to the right.
They'd sit up in front and say, okay, do this, this, and this. And if you're athletic, but I thought I was athletic when I was young. Watching them do it, probably like kids, like 4 years old and older.
They're also sold by Rafa. They call them the Belgian style.
Now, Bob is asking me about my shoe covers, and I was explaining to him that I happen to be wearing one that's sold by Rafa. I said, but all there are a lot of vendors that make shoe covers.
Great day. On Velo bikes and
Yeah, we got
Was that they went and saw a guy named Ken.
There's a guy in the area that has a bike shop. His name is Ken, and everybody has these ads on their car where they say "Go see Ken." So this bystander said there must have been a sale on Cervelo bikes because a lot of people here have Cervelo bikes. So I told him, I said, yeah, they went and saw Ken, the witch doctor. This is the shoulder I'm talking about. See, it's nice and wide. So when I ride solo, I use this lane. It's always clean until you get towards Egypt. It gets a little dirty. But on Saturday when we're riding together like this, it's 2 lanes. There's 2 lanes on the other side for traffic going east. I just use the road. And I think Paul is on the road right now. I think I may be on the shoulder because I'm talking to Bob or something. But most of the time with the group, I just use the road. But this part of it is clean. You just have to make that decision. If it's unsafe to ride on the shoulder, use the road. Unsafe meaning there's a lot of debris, glass, whatever. You don't want to risk having a puncture if you can avoid it. And then you just stand if you have to be there because the traffic is too congested or unsafe. If you must go through debris, stand up. Take the weight off the wheel. Because it's always your rear wheel that gets compromised and gets stuff wedged in them. I just cleaned my wheel, I believe, the night after this ride because I always check them. And I took off like 3 or 4 little pieces of rocks and glass that had worked their way into the tread. They had not caused a puncture yet, but they were in there. So I used tweezers to get them out. And that goes a long way into preventing flats. Not all your flats happen instantly. So yeah, you do have to inspect your tire. Stuff gets in there, they work their way in. So if you can catch them early, you won't have a flat. So I was telling Bob that, the brand I'm wearing happens to be Rafa, but you just go online and you can find, I'm dodging debris. That's what I'm doing with my hips there. You just find whatever. I told him Jordana, everybody makes them, because he's got like toe covers. And I told him, well, if it's cold enough to be concerned about my toe, I just cover my shoes. I don't own toe covers. They have the ones that go over the front of your shoe. It's another thing that I just felt like, man, I don't need that. If it's cold enough to worry about my toes, I just wear shoe covers. Let my whole foot be warm. And so he was saying that he wants to get shoe covers because he's got toe covers. And when it's cold enough, you put on toe covers, it's not enough. The back of your foot and your ankle needs to be kept warm. And that's my reason for not owning toe covers. Because they're great if you're just blocking wind. But when it's cold, even if there's no wind, it's cold. Like having a windbreaker on a cold day, it don't do you no good because the windbreaker is too thin. You need a warm jacket when it's cold. There's no wind to break, it's just cold. I try to tell these guys, they're still riding over there. We're on the road here. I'm not riding by those barrels. And that lane is not completed. There's a hole.
Big hole for the whole.
Somebody said big hole. The lane's not completed, so don't do that. If the lane's not open, don't use it. If you do, just be extra careful because now you're out of traffic. We just stayed on the road over there. There's a reason they have those barrels there. The road is not open for you to use. So if you go out there and you have a mishap, you're on your own. You can't blame the workers or whoever built it. So our team kit came in timely because this was perfect on this day that it was so cold, and with that fleece line outfit, yeah. It really worked well, and we loaded the pockets. You will see later in the ride when we're riding, just the two of us after we leave the group. We load up everything because it's warmer and still it holds. So the design came out just like we wished, and so we're very pleased with the construction. And we designed it to work with our shorts and tights as well as just black like you see here. So we have tights and shorts that go with them with the Veloharmony styling on it as well. But it's kind of cool to have that flexibility. So now we're back on our usual route heading out of town, this is 1488, Egypt and Persian 1488. I think we get the green light. And we want to make sure we get through. Yeah, Bob has a mirror on his bar end as well. He has that style that I talked about. I think it's the plastic type that he has. They're really good to have. I have just fallen in love with mine. And I've converted all my frames to the small Blvd mirror. It just disappears. If you look at it in the shot, the next time he takes it, you will see it's about the width, the circumference of the bars. So it just blends in. Very, very stealth.
Yep, it is cold.
I'm telling Paul it's cold. I'm saying it's cold not because I'm cold, but I'm telling him that the tights are blocking all the wind. I mean, I'm warm and everything, but you can tell. And I said it's great that we took the time to really get the outfit right. When you get the kit right, it's fun. We dressed warm enough, but to where we can lighten up if we need to later, because in 3 to 4 hours it's going to warm up. It makes a difference in your enjoyment. And sometimes just 1 or 2 little pieces that get you over the top. Yeah, those guys are messing around the front. That's what I'm telling Paul. You didn't see it on camera, but they're making what you call S turns when it's not necessary. And I'm like, I don't do that when I ride. I don't need an excuse to fall off my bike. If I'm making moves, I'm avoiding something, and they're basically controlled. But they're at the front doing S turns for no reason. I was telling Paul, what are they trying to prove?
Okay.
We're talking about Dan. Dan in front of us here, his shoes matches his helmet and his bar tape. That green, and it really pops. You can see it. Hopefully we'll get closer. He's on the left in all black, and you can see the green shoes. That's the Shimano. I think it's Fire, whatever you pronounce it. It's one of the Shimano and the newer shoes that's come out with. So I was telling Paul, I said, that's the Shimano. We had looked at it online.
Yeah.
The cycling shoes, the top shoes, the prices just keep going up. When it's cold like this, I drink before I leave, and I usually don't need to drink for several hours. And I don't carry water. I carry electrolytes because I want energy. Because if I just carried water, I would just be stopping for health breaks frequently and not benefiting. So I want, if every liquid I take in needs to come with a dose of energy in there. This is Mike Weinbride here, Mike W. I was hoping we'd get a close-up shot of Dan's kit in the green, the shoes, the helmet, the bars. That was kind of cool. It looked cool. And we've hit the open road. It's time to ride. Whenever I'm heading out, I take the most direct route to get out here. But once you get out here, then you have 3 to 4 choices of how you want to go. North, northwest, whatever. It's really cool. And then usually once I get out here, especially when I'm riding solo, I don't make up my mind till I get out in the area. And then depending on my mood, I decide. I'm sitting on the road on purpose because we have 2 lanes. Fishcreek, they finished the bridge. Hopefully you'll be able to see it when we're descending. The bridge across the street, we used to have 2-way traffic on that bridge. Well, that's not the case anymore. They built a second bridge, so now we have 2 lanes going north, just like you see here on the bridge as well. So it's no longer being shared with the southbound traffic. So now we've got 2 separate bridges. It's really nice. When you're coming back, you got a wide shoulder. When you're going out, you got a wide shoulder. So it's great. And then this early in the morning, we can just use the right lane. We've got a bit of a tailwind, tail cross, I believe, because I think it's southwesterly. That's why the temperature will go up so dramatically in 3 hours. So our speeds are going to be higher. I'm in zone 1 and we're doing almost 40K. I mean the draft, of course. When I follow people, I don't react to their every move. You can see where I am. Regardless of what Bob does, I can already see around him, so I know what's coming. This is the lane that used to close because the bridge was shared with the southbound traffic. You see those stripes that are gone? That's the black markings from the stripe that used to be there that closed this lane. Well, the lane's open now. So we have a 2-lane bridge going north and a brand new 2-lane bridge. Look across to the left. That's a 2-lane bridge for the southbound traffic. They finally completed it. This lake is called Lake Creek. It runs, this is the same lake we go over when we do Honey Community Egypt Road. The Honey Egypt Road goes over the same creek. This area here, this bridge is high on purpose because when we have a lot of rain, it becomes like a river and it rises up. So this bridge is at least 8 feet above the ground below. So now we can use this right lane because there's a lane. That lane used to be southbound and there was a yellow line there. They've removed that. So the new bridge on the left that you see across there is open. So it's really nice coming home. You got a wide shoulder on that side. And it's a nice climb going the other way, about 4.5%. I'm already on the road. Bob's pointing at debris. Nobody's there, so I'm not sure what he's doing. We just need to just use the road. The light changes to yellow real quickly. I go ahead and downshift before I stop. So I'm ready in a gear and ready to go when it changes, because it's going to change real quickly. It doesn't last very long here. That's why you see, what's his name? Dan's trying to do a track stand.
Pay attention, son.
There's a neighborhood to the right. It's a nice way to ride. Sometimes we ride to the right through there, especially when I'm going solo. You can go and do a big loop over there on the right. It's like a horseshoe. It brings you back to the highway a few kilometers up ahead. So whoever's at the front got up to speed quickly, so we had to get going. You got to pay attention. To avoid overreacting when you follow people, do not overlap your wheels. Sometimes you can't help it if somebody slows down too quickly, but when you're just following, I get within maybe an inch or two of Mark's wheel for the most part, but I never overlap because Mark has a tendency to move left and right without checking and without warning. That's just the way he rides. He's all over the road. In a little while, I think you will hear Paul tell him, I think we're in, when we get into Honier, Paul will tell him, hey man, you know, use one lane or something like that, because he's all over left and right. He'll go right, go left, especially when it gets really hard. So knowing how people ride makes a difference in how you follow them. The smoother riders I follow even closer. So if I'm following a rider like Mo or Jerry, I tighten it up, because most of the time they're going so fast anyway, you need to be close, but they're very smooth. And there's another rider, what's his name, Jesus. He also rides with more than them. He's very smooth too. So the more experienced the rider is, and you observe how they ride, you can get closer when you follow them. So that's a good rule of thumb to use. Follow your more stable riders or more experienced riders closer, but observe them. It doesn't matter how experienced they are. Observe whether this person pays attention, whether this person checks before they move or whatever. But if you're going to overlap because, say, you're doing an echelon, you need to make sure they know you're there. So a lot of times you tell them, I'm on your hip or something like that. But in the echelon, most experienced riders know that you're there because that's the way the pace line works. So it just becomes automatic. It's so much easier riding with people who are in the know per se. You know, people who really pay attention to details. Because you just have to observe, not every rider is a safe rider. So you've got to make your decisions accordingly. But just make sure to protect your front wheel. You need to make sure you don't put it in a situation where there can be contact. If it does happen, don't overreact. Keep your hands on the bars and steer. Don't overcorrect. That's why people fall. The wheel will bounce off of any obstacle that it hits. You'll hear the sound of things rubbing, but it'll bounce off, and just go with the flow. Kind of move with it. Don't panic. So I'm just sitting in here. We plan to do at least 6 hours as usual, and since the day is going to be so nice, as it warms up later, we figure we're gonna ride with these guys. They had said they were gonna go to Taco Corner. We end up stopping with them at Taco Corner briefly, and then we head north because they basically ended up coming back. But we ended up going further than we had planned. That's Dan over there with all the green I was talking about. The shoes matches the bar tape in his helmet. So he must have been the one pulling at the front. So he's pulled off. I'm basically sitting in, keeping my cadence reasonable. I'm not spinning excessively, and I'm not pushing too low of a cadence. And usually when I'm doing stuff like that, my range is 75 to 95. I'm unzipping my jersey. I'm warming up a bit. It's warming up. The temperature hasn't changed, but it feels warmer. All I'm doing is making sure that I don't waste any energy. Sometimes when you wear a lot of stuff and you start to ride really hard, your body heats up. It can affect your heart rate and the ranges that you fall into. So you got to make sure that you're comfortable. That's why I was unzipping earlier. If your hands get hot, you might want to pull the gloves up. Sometimes that little change makes a difference. You have to pay attention to all of that. As the road goes up, everybody's pushing. I just rev the gear and you can see the watts go up. It's a lot simpler for me to just stay on the road as opposed to getting directly behind Mark, because that shoulder is just too small. Even when I ride solo, I don't sit on that shoulder. It's too small. I use the road. If the shoulder's nice and wide, fine. But I like to give myself a little bit of room for error. And plus, where I'm sitting, I can see around them. See what's happening up ahead. I'm not sure what that was, but I guess he was telling us that he was going to stand. I was never taught to do that. I just stand. The reason that you have to keep your cadence up has many things that drive that. For one thing, if you're going to get any kind of fitness benefit when you ride a bicycle, you've got to have a reasonably fast cadence. And I'm talking 75 and up. So, you know, you see people riding bikes and they're just barely pedaling. There's really no aerobic benefit to that.
you might as well probably go for a walk. You're probably better off. And so if you're going to use cycling for fitness or to lose weight, you got to rev it up. And then as you do it more, you have to make sure you're fitted, because otherwise discomfort kicks in. Because the more you ride, all the little issues start popping up. So as Mark hits his brakes, I stay to the left. He's braking because we're going slightly downhill here, and he's getting pulled into that guy's wheel in front of him. So I stay to the left, I let the wind slow me down. Now the road's going back up here. We're approaching the overpass. And this is another bridge that has been expanded to where we're not sharing the lane with north and southbound traffic anymore. So the right lane is available because we have 2 lanes now. Bob's getting off the front. And Mike takes over. You will see the watts go up as the road goes up. I mean, to keep the speed, you've got to put more power. So right now it's at 150 thereabout, and as soon as we hit the base of the overpass here, this is the new bridge they created, you will see it go well over 200 to probably 400 watts. Because we're trying to keep the speed the same. So to do 22, like we're trying to do on this 3%, 3.5% or 4% climb, I'm having to put out 400 plus watts. There's a lot of debris and rocks. That's what Mark's pointing at. That's why I use the road. I don't have to worry about that. Nobody drives there. That's why the debris is there. So Mike pulls off, Mark takes over, I stay on his wheel. When I follow Mark, anywhere between 3 to 6 inches is what I try to do. Sometimes up to 12 inches, but you know, on a road like this, I get a little closer. I just don't overlap him because he always goes left to right. So in a little while, you will see him swing over. I end up telling him car because I'm using my mirror. He's going to be turning, he's going to point, but then he swings way over in the lane from the shoulder. Watch. I've already checked, and I know there's a car in that lane. I tell him, car, then he comes back. And somebody said, car back. So I don't know why he would do that without checking. That's the guy in the pickup truck that was coming, and ends up, he's turning left up there. But you can't go 2 lanes at one. You got to check. So, you know. And he just came, I guess he came over to the white line and then he was gonna check, but it was such a sudden move, he scared all of us. So all I told him was car, and then he looked back. So I guess he was gonna go and then check before he went in that lane. And whenever you turn, there are always riders that are a little off. So a lot of times, you know, I just soften the effort a bit so everybody can kind of get back together. But I'm just riding up to Mark here since he's leading. He calls car up so everybody's aware not to be on that side of the road.
some riders have a tendency to get careless in the group, so that's why we call both directions. This is Capitol Hill Road. We're in Honier. It's a nice climb from the opposite direction. It's long and it's challenging when we come the other way, west to east. In this direction, of course, there's a descent. I'm not sure what he's doing here. He's waving that obstacle, I guess. So I'll go ahead and take the lead thinking he's done. But you will see in a little while he will come back like he's not done. So I don't know what he was doing. Because I just want to ride the downhill as opposed to coasting. It's kind of cold. I want to keep my body warm by keeping the effort consistent. So he calls car up, and so of course I see him there, but he's in the path of the car. So you see I stop pedaling so he can get out of the way, because he called car up and look at where he is. I don't do that. I don't ride where he is. If there's a car coming, I stay to the right. Because why? These roads are not even striped, and you all know that some of the drivers even stray over the roads that are marked. I don't want him coming close to me. So when I ride these roads, where you see me now, that's where I am. And when a car is coming, I stay to that side, because I want to keep as much room between me and the car that's coming as possible, even if the road is striped, because drivers can stray. So you won't see me riding where Mark was when that car went by. I don't give the drivers that much credit. That's just me. And that's what I think you should do. I think it's best that way. That's the reason why a lot of motorcyclists will stay where you see me, because they stay away from that yellow line. It gives you a little more room. It's like a buffer. So now we come to this corner and he turns off the power. Well, I want to keep riding, so I check and it's clear. I let everybody know it's clear. I basically said clear. And right here the road is a grade. You look at the grade, it says 1. It's probably like 2%, because you feel it more than anything. And I just keep riding. I'm not riding harder than we were. I'm keeping the effort the same. And I didn't know that he had pulled out of the line, but I knew nobody was behind me. I can see in my mirror. Then in a little while I see Paul longer ride up to me, and I'm just maintaining just to keep us moving. We're probably doing about 17, 18 miles an hour. This road kind of slopes up a little bit. Yeah, it says 1%. It's one of those what they call ninja grades. Some people, I call them false flats. It's not really flat. And I'm just maintaining the same effort. I think Paul's messing with the camera, because I'm pulling away. I'm not really riding harder. Well, the speed went up. I'm in the same gear. So when the road is quiet and not a whole lot going on, where you see me is where you want to be. That's the cleanest part of the road. And on these kind of roads, 99% of the time, all the other road users will pass you in the other lane. So you don't need to be riding on that white line. Use the road. That's why we ride to come out here. These roads are quiet. Use the road. If I had a line of cars behind me queuing up and could not get by, I would still stay there until it was safe to let them by, because you don't want them crowding you in your lane if it's not wide enough. They need to move over when they go by. They need to go over that yellow line at a minimum. You do have a right to use the road. If there were a shoulder in that situation, yeah, I would get on the shoulder so they could go by. So I motion for Paul to take the lead here. I get off the front. I think this is where he switches the camera around and he keeps it there. As we approach the climbs in the distance, you will see people start to attack on the climbs, and while he's messing with the camera, he gets gapped, but the power doesn't stay on. This is where he's turning the camera around to get the rear view. I'm waiting for people to pull through because I don't want to get back in the line right at the front. So that's Scott behind Paul. I'm still sitting on the side, and I have my eye on the gaps in the line. And everybody's coming up. This is Rabon Chapel Road. We're headed north. So the temperature is 6 Celsius. So it's about 44 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an 8-degree change. And when you're riding, you can feel the difference. It's warmer. In about 10 kilometers, Mike would ask for us to stop so he can take off stuff at 2854. So we check. This is a 4-way stop sign. As Paul goes to the 4-way stop sign, after the stop sign, there's a slight downhill, and then we begin climbing. There's like I think it's 3.5% to 4% climb. But the way we ride it might as well be flat. You can still see me in the distance. I'm waiting for everybody to come by so I can get behind the line. So I'm all the way at the back when they start to go. I wasn't expecting Paul to stay there this long. We've got a good sized group. We've got enough people to pull. Because especially before the climb, because they always go harder on that climb. So I put the arrows there so you can see. See, my watch went from 50 something, now it's 300 something. We're going harder here. See everybody going around Paul? I think I'm coming by right now. And then Mike is on his side. I go by Mike and I ride up to those guys. Mike ends up sitting behind Paul. So we gapped him while he was playing with the camera, trying to switch the view to the front. But when I rode up to those guys, I'm in front of Bob and them. When I rode up to them, I realized the power was not really on. So, you know, Paul rides back to us here. I'm just sitting in. This time of year is not the time to really try to peak or anything. So I'm not trying to go super hard. So Paul goes around Bob. And this is Scott here. I'm sitting on Mike's wheel, Mike S5 we call him. And Mark is behind me. Dan is pulling. Dan J, he's the one pulling. He ends up pulling us all the way, most of Milrod. Milrod's coming. Mark's waving Scott up. Now in this corner here, what I do is I take the inside line because it's the fastest way. Now watch. As I take the inside line, they're over on the right. They'll have to come back to where I am. That's just the way. That's just the physics of it. It's kind of like when you're in an oval. That's how you take. That's the quickest way. And you see, Mike came right back in front of me. That's how you save energy. That's the shortest path in that corner. I'm sitting right at sweet spot right now. The effort went down from when we went up those hills back there. We're going to be turning left on Mill Route. And when you're riding in the group, try to stay close in the turns, because if you don't, you have to work harder to catch up. You want to try to keep your position the same as much as possible. And this road is up and down. That is 7 Celsius, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So it continues to warm up. The wind is from the south, so it's feeling nice and warm. And if you're wearing things that aren't very breathable, this is when you start paying the price, because you just get hot. All I'm doing is keeping my cadence reasonable. I'm not doing anything excessive. You know, 75, 95, thereabout. That's my range. Just steady. All you want to do is make sure you're in a gear that you're not straining in. Because whenever you're with the group, the speed will change frequently. You need to be able to adapt. So the road goes up. You can hear people shifting. So Dan has been pulling for a while. In a little while, he's going to pull off and Mike will take over. I think it's somewhere around here. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, there he is. He's pulled off. And Mike takes over. So I just sit on Mike's wheel. Mike goes a little harder than Dan was going. You can see the watts are up. I stay in the same gear, rev it up when I need to, back off when I need to, that's all. I don't really change a whole lot that I'm doing.
Keep one lane, boss.
This is what I was talking about. You see, Mark is going from the right to the left, and Paul said, keep one lane. You don't get to use the whole road. In a little while, you will hear Mike is going to tell Mark that he wants to stop to take off stuff. Because I keep riding, I'm about ready to keep going.
Mark, I'm going to peel off this lane right now. Hey, Eldred, hold on one sec.
So he tells me to hold on because Mike wants to peel off a layer. He's hot. I think he's got a balaclava on. And that's why I didn't wear my balaclava. Because a day like this, when it heats up, you get hot. I speed it up here because Paul continues to spin while I wait on the corner for Mike to take off a layer. So at this point, we've started coming up to Paul in the time lapse here, and right here, we basically let him know that.
Keep going, I'm filming the road. Go.
So he told us to keep going, but we're telling him that we're coming. He said, keep going. So he wanted to film people coming up to him and so forth. So we were warning him that we're coming up behind him. And so I think he's going to get in the line here. So I'm pulling at this point. Mike has already taken off the layer he wanted to take off. He took off the balaclava. He's getting hot. And I don't think he took off the jersey. I think he does at the store. But so all I do at the front is I want to keep it at the same effort we're holding back there, because this road is a gradual grade. See, it says 1%. It's like it's a false flat, and with the wind, you feel it every time we come on this road. I'm just riding steadily. We gotta keep it around 19 miles an hour. They're about 18 to 20. And I'm not doing it by speed, it's merely feel. But once you get the feel right, you look at what speed you're doing in this situation and you say, okay, I'm just gonna keep it here. That's kind of how you want to do it. And I'm staying pretty low. I think I'm on the hoods. I'm on the brake hoods, but I've got my arms probably parallel. I can't really tell, but I believe I was, because it was tough fighting the wind and the road is going up. So I move a little more to the right to give Bob more of a chance to echelon, because the wind's coming from the right. And so this is pretty much where the camera kind of crapped out, because the battery had enough of this cold weather. The cold weather decreases the life of the battery. So after we changed the battery, we left the group. This is us coming down 3 hours later. Look at the temperature, 22 Celsius. That's like 72 degrees, 71, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. We've already taken off. I took off my half balaclava. I believe I've taken off my gloves and put them in my pocket. I don't know if I've got one pair on or I took both off. I probably took both off because my hands were hot. And that was enough to get me comfortable. We're on 1486, headed southwesterly. It says southeast, yes, southeast, but more south than east, because we're going towards Jackson Road. The wind is pounding us because the wind is blowing from the south. We're going into the teeth of it. So I tell Paul to come up so I can get just a little shot of him.
Okay, hold on, let me get it out of my wrist.
Then you can lock it out.
Listen to that wind. And it's dubbed. It was blowing. You couldn't leave the bars today on the way back. Not out here in the plains where we're unprotected. I wanted to get a shot of the kit. You see the back of that kit. That's the kit came out really nice.
All the way back from another epic ride, heading towards Jackson Road.
You can see I removed my neck gaiter, my balaclava, because it's hot now. And I believe I have no gloves on. But everything else is comfortable.
Clear on the road.
So the Jersey breathes really well. So we can go from cold weather all the way up to the low 20s and be comfortable, even with a thermal base layer.
What you working on?
I'm messing with the cows. They always look at us when we come by, so I always talk to them. Sometimes I tell them, I only eat chicken. And they'll look at you. They don't move their bodies, they move their heads. It's like they're into economy of motion. They need to move more. They need to get lean, like goats. I wanted to get a good shot of Paul. We'll go ahead and switch the camera back. We've gotten really adept at that. And the wind is pounding us the entire time. Wind just continued to increase. Look at that sun. The sun did not seem very intense. It was really the warming from the air, the direction that was coming from the Gulf. I try to stay a little low because that wind is just blowing. That's why we get our kit to fit us well, because we're always dealing. We may not have mountains, but we got wind. All year long we're dealing with the wind from the Gulf, or this time of year from the north, and then when it starts to switch around, you get those blustery changes where it's just blowing in all directions. The road goes up here.
They used to have a sign here that says share the road. They replace it with a bike.
Yeah, you just put it like that. You're right. You took a picture of it one time. Yep.
What Paul is talking about is there's a yellow sign up there with a bike symbol on it. They used to have a bigger sign that said share the road. They removed that and just put caution bicycles. That's what that sign means. It's right at 70 degrees. For the most part, it was between 68 and 70 is what our head unit was saying, depending on whether it was in the sun or not. This entire weekend we're dealing with just heavy wind. The day after this ride we went out, coming back, it was even more vicious than this. So the wind is out there, it's gonna do its thing. You just have to find your gear and get a rhythm. road goes up here. I just make sure I'm in a comfortable gear. I don't want to go below 70. I try to stay 75 to 85 in this situation. You can see me going slower. As my cadence goes down, it kicks in right there, and then it will lessen out. The idea is to not fight the situation. You know, it's kind of like you want to keep your rhythm the same. I really didn't want to downshift in that point because I knew it was about to be over and I didn't want to stand. So I just went ahead and tried to stay as smooth as I could, and I took whatever cadence the situation afforded me. It wasn't so much the climb per se, but it was a combination of the climb and the wind. Because as you can hear, it is dubbed, but it was blowing. It's heavy. It's the kind of wind where when you're standing, you could feel it trying to move you, and then now on the bike, it was even worse. And right before we turn on Jackson Road, it kicks up to almost 5% up ahead there where we take the left turn. It's gonna go from -1, it's gonna flip once the GPS catches up, but the grade really begins around here. Yeah, it says 1 now, it's gonna go. And as you get over there, it's like a wall. So I use my mirror and I check for traffic, and as I get closer, then I'm gonna move over. I stay here as long as I can, just in case there's faster traffic coming. I think we go over after that guy. I don't know if there's somebody else coming or not. I check the mirror, nothing's coming, move over. Then I keep my eye on the top of that hill, because those cars appear at the last minute, because you can't see.
At the top of the hill.
Yeah, that's what I told Paul. And I think something shows up. Yep. So when your line of sight is impaired, you need to make sure you keep your eye on the most vulnerable point. This is Jackson Road. And it's heading east, so we're not dealing with too much of the wind. It goes east and then it goes south. So I try to settle into a rhythm, because this is probably about 16 kilometers, I'm thinking, this road. It's a good distance. At this point, you can see my pockets are loaded. I've got those gloves, my food, and everything in there. I leave the middle open so we can store the camera. But look how the jersey takes it. That's why whenever we get our kit done, anything we get, we make sure the pockets are reinforced. all I do is I settle into a rhythm because this is a long drive here where we're going to be going through Jackson Road, and it's rolling terrain. So you kind of want to take what it gives you and make sure you don't overuse your legs. The road starts to go up here. Just a slight grade. It may not register, but you feel it. And with that wind, all I'm focusing on is keeping the effort right at the top of zone 2. The wind is really pounding, and all I do is I make sure my gearing is reasonable because I want to treat it like I'm climbing per se, especially on the uphill sections into the wind. And I work on just staying smooth. That's how you save energy. Listen to that wind, and it's done. So as it rolls to where we're doing like 37 kilometers an hour and now it's down to like 27, 28, you don't want to pay attention to speed. What you want to focus on is how your gearing feels and whether you're on top of the gear. That's all that matters. This road is always relatively quiet. I mean, you get cars from time to time, but the volume is sparse. Far and few between. Wind starts to pick up again because there are certain sections where the trees will block the wind, and so you always want to be aware of, do I need to go down in the gearing, do I need to go up, so you keep your rhythm consistent. That's why we don't train the speed. That is not a metric for training. Speed is a result of the effort and the conditions. Meaning weather, terrain, whatever. This is how you should look on your bike when you fit it correctly. You shouldn't be moving all over the place. Only your legs should be doing the work. That's how we can spend more than 6 hours on the bike in comfort. So it's more important that you're fitted to your machine, and it's even more important that you get a good kit, because your body is the biggest drag. Don't waste money on wheels. If you don't have a good fit and you don't have a good position, it will negate any benefits you might get from the wheels. Because if you're sitting up like a sail in the wind, there are no wheels that are going to do anything for you. You need to be positioned like you're slicing the wind on your bicycle. Just like the boys of old, Jacques Anquetil, Marx, all those guys. There's no point reinventing what works. That's what it takes. I don't care what kind of bike you ride. Your body positioning has parameters that they have to conform to. There's certain angles your knee must be within to be tolerable. You know, varies for everybody, but generally the way you look on the bicycle should not vary that much, other than body proportion stylings. I stand over here to avoid shifting just for this little bump. You should be able to do that. You should be able to stand, kick up the bike. You all saw Mark give thumbs up before he stood up. Who's got time to do that? You should be able to stand without your bike going backwards. You don't need to give any warning that you're going to stand. I mean, I don't know. I was never taught to do that. I don't think it's necessary. I run the credits here. I want to thank our sponsors, Divine AG Church, Kish Fabrication, Paulie Longa, Joe Nanga, and all our channel members and patrons for supporting Veloharmony's educational cycling videos. Consider becoming a member and take advantage of the perks that we have in our premium videos that you have access to in Tier 2, the Lion Cub. The road goes up here. I continue to work the gears to make sure that my cadence is in the range it should be in. This is a good shot that Paul got here. I don't know how he did. I was asking him about it. It's a good shot. I like this angle. If you watch my legs and you watch my feet, you can see me using the circle of the pedaling circle. I try to eliminate all dead spots so that no leg is carrying the other leg. Both of them work. That's what you're seeing. And it looks like I'm scraping something off the bottom of my shoe. You have to practice that. So you use the entire leg and all the powerful muscles in the back of your leg and the muscles in your lower back. They all are a factor. So even though the wind is doing this stuff, all I'm focusing on is making sure I'm not over geared. That's all you can do. You can't change the fact that the wind is out there. You have to focus on what you can change. And that's why you have a derailleur. You can change the selection of your gear, and you can relax your torso so that all the energy can go to your legs. I have no tension in my upper body because that does not make the bike go forward. And once you get to that point where you can do that, when you ride, it's a joy because you feel like, man, I can do this forever because you're selecting the right gear. I mean, even if you're riding with people that are faster than you, at some point you're gonna have to let them go until you get strong enough to comfortably turn gear ratios that will allow you to hold their speed. That's what I mean. And don't be shy about letting people go, because there's no point in you riding outside of your comfort zone per se, meaning it's okay to push yourself from time to time, but we call it pedaling squares. If you're riding to where you're in the red and you're pedaling squares, you're not teaching your body anything at that point. Just remember that. So you can hang as much as possible, but when you start, your style start falling apart. You don't want to teach your body how to pedal the wrong way. Let's put it that way. You can see me pulling up. And the harder it gets, the more I pull up. Especially when I'm climbing. Because the muscles in the back of my leg, I have more of them. They're larger and more powerful. So I make them do quite a bit of work so the quads can rest for those explosive efforts. So if you can't sit on your bike for any appreciable amount of time without scooting around or whatever, something's up with your fit. You need to get some help. I dropped my cadence here a little bit by shifting up into a harder gear to treat it almost like a climb per se, and it just basically changes up the rhythm somewhat. I just did that to mix it up. So we've been on the road for a while, dealing with this wind pounding us. The road starts to go up here, I downshift. You see my speed drop, but my cadence is gonna go up. Well, relative, I guess. The road's going up. I think we're approaching 149, the junction with Jackson Road. Yeah, it goes up. It says 2%. It's probably closer to 3%. And it's long. So with that wind, well, we're working. So I hope you all got a chance to get some K's in this weekend. If you didn't, get outside, walk around, move your body, keep those doctors fired by getting your K's in. This is part of what we did on Saturday. I think in a little bit I'll go ahead and take the camera from Paul. That's where we ended the filming. We've hit the 149 piece that will take us into Magnolia, Texas. Stay safe out there, but don't let anything stop you from getting out and getting your K's in.